our communities rely on outside sources for every single thing within their communities, you know. And if you look at the differences in communities that are thriving and the communities that are struggling, it's the ownership. It's the ownership and the amount of respect that we have for our community and the amount of respect that we demand that anybody that visits our community, anybody that lives within our community have too. We have a very a good department. We're a great department. In some respects, we are. We have great officers throughout our department. We have a young department. You know, I have 2,480 officers. I have a complement of 2,480 officers. We've hired 1,200 of those within the last 6 years. Wow. So we have a young department. We don't have the luxury of having those grizzly veterans, as you would term, you know, a department inundated with those. People are choosing to retire earlier. You look at myself, I'm eligible for retirement right now as we speak. Wow. I celebrate my 25th year next year, and I'm eligible for retirement at that point. Whereas in the past, people would not have even considered retiring in their 40s or early 50s. People are actually exercising that option now. So it's tough. The turnover is massive, the retention. It's tough. It's tougher to recruit people. People are choosing to get into law enforcement for shorter terms. You don't have the career officers now. Almost on a weekly basis, I'm getting the resignation letters or retirement letters from people that are choosing to do other things. So we are training them, and we're putting all the resources into them, and they're choosing to go and do other things. Wow. So it's tough. Yeah. It's extremely tough.
You know, 30 minutes is not going to be enough time for us because there's so many different avenues that we can take. You talked about being eligible for retirement, and you know, there's so much in you that we've just really got to tap out. So you and I are going to have to make a commitment to see if we can't team up and do some things within the greater Memphis area, so that people can see some more good things that you are doing, and we can turn our city around. Having said that, we know that you take ownership. We know that there is a large number of your officers who take ownership. What can we as citizens do? I've, for example, gone through the Citizens Police Academy, and I just realized about a month ago that Dr. Dorsey had even signed it. I never even realized that. But you've got the Citizens Police Academy. What are some of the things that we can do to really help you, to help ourselves?
We got the Citizens Police Academy. We have now we have a clergy academy where ministers throughout the city. So far, we've had 66 ministers to graduate. We currently have a class with a little bit over 30 people in it. So we're taking steps like that to educate people, just so you understand the limitations of a police department, our strengths, our weaknesses, why we do some of the things that we do. You know, so often I get people to say, you know, I know that house on my corner selling drugs. If I know it, why can't you do anything about it? Well, there are legal ramifications associated with that. So we encourage people to get educated as to why we do things, and more importantly, why we don't do things. Get to know the officers in your area. As you know, I'm community police oriented. We have 2 groups of community police officers now in the southern part of the city, as well as North Memphis. These are officers that have went through extraordinary lengths to get to know every single person within these communities. It's made a tremendous difference. The crime rates are down in those communities. The perceptions of police officers in those communities are down. And at the end of the day, we have to do something to change that, because sometimes things in the media can take a life of its own. The media serves its purpose. Certainly, I'm not here to knock that. The media is a valuable tool for us. But with that said, the media is a whole separate entity, and again, it tends to take a life of itself. And positive media does not necessarily get the ratings that negative media gets. So I just, more than anything, I would encourage people in their communities, get to know the officers in your communities, get to know your neighbors, take pride, take ownership in your community.
Well, we were talking earlier before the show, and I was sharing some fun memories of when I was in college some few years ago. And for some of the younger people that know me, they would probably say a few hundred years ago. But I do recall actually working with a police captain in Knoxville when I was at UT Knoxville with a friend of mine, Thomas Jefferson. We worked with Captain Rowan and the junior police force, and we were talking about those kinds of possibilities and opportunities. For the people that may want to get involved, I want their contact information so at least they can contact you. Once again, we're talking with the Memphis Police Director, Director Armstrong for Memphis, Tennessee. And in order to get in contact with that office, you can reach them at 901-545-COPS. That's 901-545-2677. And they can also be reached on the internet at www.memphispolice.org. Once again, we're talking with Police Director Armstrong. And my next question is going to be getting people mobilized and excited and behind some of the efforts. What would you suggest, and how would you suggest they do that?
Yeah, you know, it's tough. You know, again, you have a perception, police officers, so we have to do a better job to change that perception and dispel some of the myths about some of the things that people perceive about police officers. I've had negative encounters with police officers, you know, growing up. But at the end of the day, you can't let that negative encounter, you know, taint your whole perspective of all police officers. You know, now sadly to say, we have communities, entire communities or neighborhoods that have that perception of police officers. So you're not talking about one or two people, you're talking about entire communities that have that perception. So you can see there's already two strikes behind us when we show up.
Wow.
So it's our job to do a better job, and it's my goal to, when you see police officers show up, that is not necessarily bad news. And when we do show up, even when we show up and things are not going well, we're showing up as a partner. We are a community partner. And you're just as valuable to us as we are to you.
Wow. Well, I'm really hoping, and I will say that I read an article that was in the newspaper about you a week or so ago, and I thought it was an incredible article. And hopefully with that article and with this show, and hopefully with some other footage, shows, just some exposure, that you can start focusing on the positive aspects of what you're doing. And with having said that, there's got to be some proud moments that you've experienced. What are some of the most proud moments that you've experienced?
You know, I guess if you ask, the proudest thing is that my family has had the opportunity to share everything, all of the positive things that have happened to me, you know, relevant to my career. My mom, in fact, have gotten the opportunity to see the fruits of her labor. I regret that my grandmother was not here to see it. You know, I wish that my daughter was a little older so she can, you know, I guess in one respect, I wish she was a little older so she can understand what's going on right now.
Yeah. And
two, again, in some respects, I'm glad that she's not, so she can't, you know, get caught up in that. The police director in this city is a very popular position to hold, but with that comes a lot of media scrutiny. So it takes a tough person to deal with that. And more importantly, it takes a tough support system to deal with that. Certainly, no one wants to pick up the paper or look at the news every single night and you see someone that you care about or someone that you love portrayed in a way that you know is not fair, or that you feel is not fair. So. It's a tough position, but I can only imagine that it's probably tougher for you know, my family than it is for me.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, because that me. My wife and I offer professional development, and then we do one-on-one coaching with professionals. And she heads up the business part, and I work with athletes, and I know you're a former athlete too. Might I say former? You look like a current athlete. But I know that mental toughness piece is something that I really focus on, and I tell people all the time, you know, this is my playground. But it's important for people to know that when you say tough, that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, being physically tough, but it's important for them to understand that you mean mentally tough. And along with that, there's a lot that, you know, you have to hold in, and you have to have a lot of qualities that most people tend to not have. So
it's tough. You know, there are times that people look at the president, and certainly during the past presidential debates, and you know, when things got a little heated or contentious, say, God, I wish he'd just say this, I wish he'd just say that. But when you sit and you think about it, it's probably a good thing that he didn't, you know. So I find myself in the same situations as I move throughout the city. People say, oh, I wish you could tell that reporter this, I wish you could, you know, tell the members of council this or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's not about me. I've been blessed beyond belief. Yeah. And I have to leave this office, you know, when my time here is done, I have to lead this office in such a way that the next young person will get the opportunity to do exactly what I've been given the opportunity to do. So there's a lot of, you know, a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. So you're exactly right. You have to have a lot of mental toughness. Now, with that said, is there things that upset me? Sure, there. You know, there are things that I wish that reporters hadn't put that particular slant on, or I feel like that they portrayed us, you know, not in necessarily the best of light, but we're going to be okay. I mean,
absolutely.
Okay.
Wow. Well, there's one thing, you mentioned the president, and the one thing that I've seen in his body language, I don't know him personally, but I do through observations. He tends to be, or seems to be, a man of high character and integrity. And when you said the president, then I think just mentioning him, I thought about the two of you, and the similarities are that you're both men of character and integrity, and therein lies the difference. So the media, sometimes it's a little bit tough to shake someone when you are really working within and dealing within the area of your core values. So once again, Mom, your grandmother, right, your family support, that's a part of you. That's a part of your DNA. So it's tough for people to shake you there. Let's talk a little bit, because there are a couple of other things. We know that our time is running out. All right. A couple of other things. What keeps you going, and what inspires you?
You know, as I walk around this city, very rarely, you know, do I walk into somebody and they don't say these words: I am praying for you. Oh, great. You know, so you know, again, that's powerful. Yes. That's powerful, and not certainly you'd expect that to come from people that are in the ministry, well, elderly people, but to have young people to come and say, you know, Director Armstrong, I watch you on TV all the time, and I just want you to know that you got a lot on you, and I'm praying for you. Awesome. That is so powerful. So more than anything, I tell people, and my always response is, I need that more than anything. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, so just continue to pray for me, continue to pray for this department, and again, understand that this is a thankless job. Yeah. It always has been a thankless job. Yeah. This always has been a tough. Now it tends to get a little bit more attention and a little bit more publicity now that seems that I'm here, because the first is always hard. Yeah. In any position. First is always difficult. Super. Well, as we close out, I will tell you that I was on a conference call with some gentlemen, and a gentleman from Detroit said to me, you know, there's some things that are going on in Memphis, and I would love to say, and I'm proud to say, that with you being at the leadership, we realize that some of those black eyes that Memphis has gotten, it might take a little bit of time, but I will tell you, I'm on board. I'm certainly on your team, and whatever we can do, my wife, myself, our company, and my network of people, whatever we could do to help you to make Memphis a better place to live, work, and play, we'll definitely do that. Once again, we're talking with Memphis Police Director Armstrong, and